tech more as an enabler to solve that problem. Because in that case, for what generally happens, as I mentioned, like the AI, for example, in AI or any new tech disrupts the older one, any new technology keeps coming in. If we keep on switching from tech A to tech B, tech C, we may lose the bus as well. At times, people may not analyze, oh, this will go long or not. Like, for example, blockchain, not many people are talking about it right now. As soon as OpenAI comes up with advanced version of AI as well, people jump onto the AI right now. So what would you think, like, how shall we approach exactly on
Yeah,
this?
yeah. So my point was that, okay, so look for a new platform. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say the new platform is AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now take the platform and figure out, like, if you look at what Facebook is doing, or what Google is doing, and what Apple is doing, and all, like, what are the problems they're trying, why are they putting so much of money in? They're putting so much of money in because they believe this will fundamentally impact their business in a good way or a bad way, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what are the kinds of problems that they believe AI is either going to make them or break them with? So here's an example. You're familiar with Adobe, right?
Yes.
So Adobe is known, basically they're the kings of the creative market, right? So they build their entire business around tools for designers, right? So creative people, correct? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what is the first wave of AI we are seeing? We saw Gen AI. It's generative AI, right? Now all of a sudden, if your AI can generate pictures for you, movies for you, edit them with audios, visuals, all of that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
What
Mm-hmm.
does that do to the market leader, which is Adobe? It could fundamentally disrupt them overnight. So what do? They've got to spend a few $1 billion, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
now, uh, look at Google. Google's about 90% of the revenue is driven through advertising, which in turn is driven through search, right? Now, instead of going to a browser and going to a search engine like Google, if all search queries happen through, I don't know, like you talking to ChatGPT,
Correct.
that fundamentally disintermediates them, and right. So I'm not saying, hey, just get after a technology. I'm saying get after a technology and then figure out, like, why is Google investing billions of dollars? Why is Meta investing billions of dollars? And if you do a deep dive on each one of these big companies, then you will come up with a set of 9 to 10 use cases. Now
Correct.
you can prioritize those, and you can say,
Correct.
hey, this particular one, it's a huge market. There are lots of consumers. It's easier for me to get to those consumers. And, by the way, from a timing perspective, the action is going to happen in the next 2 years. And then use case number 8 and 9, that's going to play out over 8 to 10 years.
Correct. So just one thing to ask as well, you mentioned about the monetization. So at times, if you see even these biggies, right, they never had the monetize. They might be keeping in their mind to monetize at some point in time, but they do not start with monetizing from day one. Like even though if you think about Google search, it did not start from monetizing from day one. Even like I mentioned about Facebook and others also, right? Even OpenAI, they figured out a model at latest point in time how to monetize because lots of investment has gone in.
Yeah.
Everybody was looking for the return. So
Yeah.
what do you think, how shall we approach in terms, I mean, is it really required to keep monetization, from day one, or just think at some point in time when we have the right traction, to the problem that we are solving for, and then we think of, okay, now let's start looking for monetizing, right? Because at times, I've seen investors leave in between because they don't see that, and especially at the early stage, if you couldn't able to monetize, they say, oh, ये तो बेकार idea, छोड़ो अभी इसको, let's move on to the next.
So if you see investors,
Mhm.
right, leave an early stage company because of no monetization, you are talking to investors who don't know what investing is. Okay,
Correct.
so
Mhm.
trying to, you actually, I would say, as a real entrepreneur, as a real founder of a real startup,
Mhm.
in the first couple of stages, you shouldn't even be like spending like 1 hour a week on revenue. Okay,
Hmm.
so it's not
That's a
about
good point.
revenue, it's
Hmm.
about what could potentially be the revenue. So look, when you go to a VC
Hmm.
is at an early stage, they're investing in you and whatever tech you showed them, right?
Showed them, yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
tell them, look, this is a large market, a VC will say, okay, let me see, have you even thought about how you could potentially monetize this.
Hmm.
So they want to know that you've thought about it, but not necessarily that you're actually
From day
executing
one.
on it and try to generate revenue.
Hmm. Makes
In
sense.
fact, a smart VC will actually tell you, hey, I'll give you money right now, but I'm giving you money to make the tech better, to build a real product around this, not just an MVP, right? And
Hmm.
don't worry, we'll crack monetization later.
Correct, correct, correct. So that means what you are saying is we should keep the things in, I mean, the monetization piece in mind, but let's build that or bring it to that stage where we can really think that, this is where we should start monetizing it basically, right? Because
Uh,
I agree with you. Everything is driven by making money for sure, because nobody would like to invest at some after some point in time when you are not making money out of your startup itself, right? And even for yourself also. So I
Correct.
agree to your point on that. Yeah. Okay.
So typically, a series B is where you would actually seriously start flirting around with trying to figure out product market fit, which is also where revenue comes in, right? And then people don't expect you to achieve product market fit until like series C, D, something like that. But
Hmm.
there is something you said earlier which is very valid, which is business models emerge. So,
Correct.
usually startups shouldn't go in with like, here's my business model, here's my revenue model, or here's my revenue engine. Build on something, build a product that people will use, and a lot of people will use, and then the business model always emerges.
Correct. Yeah. Yes. That's a very valid point. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions or thoughts?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
go ahead.
actually, yeah, one of the factor which influences the acquisition is also the survival of the fittest. For example, like as we saw, like Instagram is it was gaining traction, and it was a like a very risky situation for Facebook. And also, if we talk about Google, like the moment OpenAI launched ChatGPT, it was a existential threat for Google because all the like the eyeballs you call it was towards ChatGPT. So survival of the fittest, I think it might be one of the factor for acquisition.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you hit it on the head, Nakul, and I just refer to it as fear versus greed. So for Facebook or Meta, essentially, again, like they also generate 90% of the revenue through advertising, right? Advertising basically depends on, do you have enough eyeballs and to put ads in front of, right? So they're constantly looking for consumer behavior change, especially across generations, right? So like my generation, we were big on Facebook, right? The other generations, like the younger generations, they don't even do Facebooks, right? So they'll do Instagram, they'll do Snapchat, they'll do a bunch of others. So for a company like Meta, which generates billions and billions of dollars fundamentally through one revenue source. So compare Meta to Apple or Amazon. Okay, Amazon, like if one product line goes down, it's okay because they've got multiple product lines with significant revenue. But Google and Meta, 90% of the revenue is simply coming through advertising. And for that, you need eyeballs. So they constantly want properties that, one, have a lot of eyeballs. Two, it allows them to diversify risk. And three, they are in line with evolving customer and or consumer preferences across generations. So for them, you're right. It's kind of like a fierce purchase, which is like, hey, if I don't buy these guys out, then my competitor might, or these guys someday might become bigger and then threaten us. Same thing with OpenAI, right? I mean, like they could easily kind of become the default search engine. So Google has to invest in AI.
Hey Rajat, can you click on stop presenting because we are still seeing your screen?
Yeah. Animesh, do you have a question?
यस सर। सर हम लोग जब रेवेन्यू की बात कर रहे हैं तो सर दो स्टार्टअप्स मेरे मन में आ रहे हैं, एक जीरोधा एंड जोहो। और सर
Mm-hmm.
उन दोनों ने अभी तक जीरोधा एंड जोहो
Yeah.
दोनों सर यूनिकॉर्न स्टार्टअप हैं और सर उन्होंने मार्केट से आज तक एक भी पैसा नहीं उठाया।
Mm-hmm.
और सर उन्होंने मार्केट से अभी तक एक भी पैसा नहीं वो उठाया, मतलब कोई फंडिंग नहीं।
Yeah.
It's not
Okay.
required to be
एंड
having funding
स्टिल
always, Animesh, right? I mean, that's what I think. It's not required to be having a funding. I mean, people do the seed funding, they make profit from day one and they keep investing back in that as well, right? So it's not always required, I believe, to raise the funds always as such.
So yeah, and look, I mean, there
जी
may always be there are always going to be some exceptions as well. I'm not familiar with Zerodha. I'm very familiar with Zoho, and uh, so my read is that people became familiar with Zoho in India only recently, in the last maybe 1 year or so. Is that right, or like
ये सर
when is
Yeah.
the first time
Right.
anybody on the call heard of Zoho? Okay, so I use Zoho. I was using Zoho in 2007. Okay, so Zoho has existed for a very very long time, uh, and frankly, like so I don't think they operated as a traditional startup. So if you think back to the slides I was presenting, I said, look, fundamentally the difference between a startup and a small business is that startups are looking for explosive growth and they're looking to disrupt an existing market. Zoho wasn't doing that. Zoho has been around for a very, very long time. They didn't really get market traction outside of India. Even in India, the reason I say that my sense is people have heard about Zoho in the last 1 year is because one of the ministers, I think Abhinav or whatever, the I think he put out a tweet saying, I signed this
अश्विनी
contract
वैष्णव।
using a right. So, I mean, that's like, okay, good marketing for Zoho, good for the founders that, they've always kept it privately held and seem to be making good money. But I won't call them a typical startup because they didn't disrupt anybody. They didn't really look for explosive growth. If I was using them in 2007, they've been around at least for 18 years, right? Maybe longer. So look, yeah, sure. Look, I mean, you could go make money at a business that's not a typical startup, and I would actually say Zoho is not a typical startup. It's more like a small business that may actually be a fairly big business.
बट सर हम जैसे जीरोधा की बात करते हैं तो उस टाइम इंडिया में स्टॉक मार्केट में कोई भी ऐप नहीं था जो ऑनलाइन इन्वेस्टिंग में था। देन फिर उन्होंने उसको बिल्ड किया और स्टार्टिंग में उन्हें फंड्स चाहिए थे, उन्हें नहीं मिले, लेकिन फिर उन्होंने मैनेज किया। देन फिर उसके बाद से उन्होंने कोई फंड ही नहीं रेस किया।
Yeah, one, I'm not familiar with Zerodha, but yeah, like I mean, it's not necessary that you have to keep raising funds. In fact, if you raise funds and then you're able to generate a revenue where you're able to sustain your growth, then that's great, right? The difference between a startup and a small business in that situation will be a startup will need to generate really expansive revenues because fundamentally they're looking to operate at a very very fast pace. So they want to grow their business very very quickly, which means they're like, we want to spend tons of money, या तो वो money हमारे खुद के revenue से आ रहा है या फिर we have to go raise that money. So, but there are times when startups will start generating revenue which is fast enough and decent enough where it's able to sustain their own explosive growth. So maybe Zerodha is one of them. I'm not familiar with them.
Sir, I have question related to your line only.
Hmm.
So as you're saying, like anybody, that the way startup line is starting one point, how you start ideas, you start doing. But if it is not able to expand itself, it is not able to scale, then you cannot say it is startup. It will become like a small business, right? Just like in case of the Joho one, I was just searching on the Google. It is saying, global technology for its extensive cloud-based technology, founded in 2007.
Yeah,
Okay, so you said 2007, that time only Amazon or they started actually this cloud business, right? 2006. And look at the Amazon AWS where they are exactly, right? And these company they started long back and nobody knows that. First time today only I get to know the name of this company. There is a company called Joe. Okay.
correct.
And the
So
similar name I can see for one company you may be knowing like Rediff, right? The people earlier used to use it for chatting and Gmail, right?
yeah,
I'm having that account that I'm using since college days when I was in college. Okay, that
yeah,
company time itself they used to they do the social networking. They used to sell the product as well and the social media. A lot of stuff they used to do. Okay, 2007, 8. Then now after 15 years, after that, lot of company came. Now they are the world's well-known company, and but they are there only. Nobody knows them. They became like that. But they are still they are a small company. Nobody knows them. But they were
Right.
having similar idea, and the founding principle of they were the similar to how these big techs are doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, let's have one more question from Sanjay.
Yeah, hi sir. Sir, I want to do some small business. Luckily, in that era time, we can create Facebook, Google, or any company very easily. So, having accessible tech right now, how we can like manage infra or traction to build business in India specific only. Then after we move to the global stage. Am I
So,
clear?
no, Sanjay, sorry. Are you saying you have the tech to build Facebook or Google? But
Yeah,
so,
Facebook, Google, any tech company in the world.
uh-huh.
I have problem of handling infra and traction.
No, wait, okay. So, so when you, I mean, first of all, that doesn't sound credible. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to be
No,
rude, but
suppose
I'm
it
trying
is
to challenge
credible.
you, huh?
Then suppose it is credible, then how we can manage the traction and
No,
the infra?
but there's no suppose it's credible. It's not credible. It's
See,
not credible.
I'm building one of the product of similar to Substack and Radic, and more or less I'll move it to the LinkedIn. I'm doing it.
Okay.
Suppose it's credible.
So
My
let's say
issue is
it is.
yeah,
Okay. Let's say it
yeah.
is. So why would you like? I mean, those companies already exist. So why would you want to build it?
Actually, I don't have idea.
So you don't build it. I mean, look, if you're not going to do anything different or anything new, then why would you
No,
build it?
In India, we are uh, paying those companies who are residing in US. I
Okay.
want those money in India,
Okay.
and that's why
So
I want to build
so what?
Google, Microsoft, and all these company in India specific like China.
So let me ask you this question. I think the fundamental question anytime you're building a startup is what problem am I solving? Whose problem is it? And how big is the problem? So whose problem are you like? Who are the people in India who are complaining that, oh man, like I have to use Google products?
No, no, actually, in the China, most of the Chinese people are using their Chinese product, and
No,
they
no,
are
Sanjay, you're not
actually
answering
this
the
is more.
question.
Yeah,
The answer is not this is what the Chinese are doing. The answer
yeah.
is you want to build it for India. So I'm saying what whose problem are you solving in India? Who's complaining that hey, here's a gap? Because if nobody is asking for it, then you're solving a problem that is important to you, not to customers. So that is so like you have to okay. So this is what a lot of founders sometimes make the mistake, which is they convince themselves that it's a interesting problem to solve, and uh, and if you're a passionate person, then you could easily spend like 6 months trying to crack it. But a general rule of thumb is there is leave China aside for a minute, right? I think apart from like Alibaba, Tencent, maybe a couple of other startups, China is not the role model for startups, right? So I would generally say if you're building a startup can't be about make in India. That is what governments do. Okay, so if you're going to come up with something like it's a make in India thing, that's why I'm going to do it, then leave that to the government. There's no role for a startup. Now, if you say that there's a benefit to the Indian population, then quantify the benefit, saying, hey, you know what, like if I offer it at half the price, then you know what, like a billion more people will use it, or I don't know, whatever, right? So, however you want to describe it, you have to think of it that way.
So yeah, definitely,
So,
if
Rajat,
I
one
build in India,
example.
then it is cost effective. Definitely, more than even more than half of the price they are selling in India.
Okay, so then my counter there would be, and we can discuss this offline as well. My counter would be price is never a differentiator, especially when you're going up against big companies, because if Google is offering something for $1, and let's say you can offer it for 50 cents, the minute you show that you selling it for 50 cents is attracting hundreds of millions of customers in India, Google will come and discount it to 10 cents.
So, Rajat, can I give one example about this?
Yeah,
let's say EVs in India.
yeah,
Okay, somebody will can come up with an idea that I can make a EV for Indian market, and it will be less cost.
yeah.
That can be an innovation. That can be a viable product.
Absolutely, but it would be a viable. No, absolutely, you could, right? But if you're just talking about EV, then EV is pretty commoditized, and it's not something that a startup can do. I mean,
Yeah, true,
Tesla,
true.
right? I mean, if you're talking about autonomous vehicles, sure, but EV requires capital, right? You require like huge battery factories, and of course, in general, producing automobiles is tough, right? But you're right, and especially with the tariff regime that the Indian government has, an Indian company might actually have an advantage there. Maybe.
Yeah,
But let's say a startup in India today wanted to build an EV company. I don't think any VC in the world would fund it, because I mean it's a commodity product now. Anybody can put together an EV if they have the money to set up factories. So I think instead of a VC, somebody like a growth capital guys like NEA or one of these guys, TPG, if you can convince them that you have the chops to run a factory and some automobile background, yeah, those guys might put in money, but not your Sandhill VCs.
yeah, okay.
One point I want to raise, like discuss, like if we talk about Google or Facebook, so the driving force was not the money, as we discussed. They came across a breakthrough in the research, we said the patented technology. They implemented it and they solved a problem which was at a global scale. It was a very big problem at that time, and they did not share their recipe also. Till now, nobody was able to beat the Google search. Like I think Microsoft came up with the Bing or other players also. I think if some research, some groundbreaking research, if but in India, I don't know why such kind of a innovation we are not able to see.
Yeah, like sure. I look. I mean, there's. So I think the point is there's lots of research that happens, but not every research you get to see in the form of a product or service that you use, right? So in the case of Larry and Sergey, they were PhD students at Stanford, right? They came up as part of their thesis. They came up with this way of doing search. So prior to that, the entire web was kind of categorized like yellow pages, right? Yahoo used to do it, and these guys came up with this fundamentally new way of getting to websites, right, or finding websites. And they actually tried to sell it for Yahoo for 1 million. Then they tried to sell it for Yahoo for 10 million or 100 million, right? And Yahoo refused. So, I mean, the reason we benefit from Google search today is because they found a way to make money of it. Otherwise, it would be a very interesting research paper that you could read, but you probably wouldn't have a product that you could use at scale today.
Cool. Pushkar, you want to say something?
Yes, yes. Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So let's say there's a problem in the market and we figure it out. We onboard some customers, we tested our like what problem we are solving, it is actually valid or not. And we actually know whose problem is this. But while building our GTM part, what filters we have to add that we know whose problem is this, but in whose there are some filters we have to add. So what are those filters? Like we have to approach some most desperate customers, or we have to approach the customers which are approachable, and like what type of filters we have to add.
I think to some extent it depends on the kind of product, right? But at the outset, you're really trying to figure out like how big is the problem, right? So big means not just the number of people that want it, but how badly do they want to solve that problem, right?
Mhm.
So I think previously I've used this analogy like a vitamin, a painkiller, or a drug, right? So vitamin
Mhm.
A, vitamin B, like लोग जो है रोज गोलियां ले लेते हैं, राइट? पता नहीं
Mm-hmm.
उसका कुछ असर होता है कि नहीं होता. मे बी इट विल हेल्प यू बाय द टाइम यू आर लाइक 80 years old or something, right? But you pop in a pill anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If you forget to take a vitamin someday, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
really matter to you, right? तो
Yeah.
पेन किलर है कि सर में दर्द हो रहा है तो इट्स अनोइंग, सो इट्स लाइक यार लेट मी टेक सम एस्पिरिन, नहीं तो ये अनॉय करता रहेगा, राइट? And
Yes,
then
sir.
a drug is like you have cancer. If you don't take it, like you know, it makes a huge meaningful difference in your life. So when
Mm-hmm.
you're, so I think depending on the kind of product or service you have, you have to
Mm-hmm.
figure out ki okay, your customer may be willing to kind of use this and they might think it's interesting, but
Mm-hmm.
is this like a vitamin? Is this a painkiller or is this a drug? Like how strongly or how passionate are they about this?
Yes. Okay, so here's my second question. So, like as you said that don't just think while you are building that we are building for our like for India and all right, just go globally. So, like, don't you think while we are building for our local, so we have some unfair advantage to doing sales and all,
No,
and
thank
while
you.
we are building, yeah,
Yeah. No, thanks for that prompt. So let me clarify. So I'm not saying that uh, don't build for India and go global. I'm saying do not build something that's already available just because you want to do, like, don't approach it from a nationalistic spirit. कि I'm going to, every company that's out there मैं उसका Indian version India में बनाऊंगा,
no, no, no,
because right.
no,
So
that was
but yeah,
yeah,
but aside
no, I
from
think.
that, I agree with you that if you're an
Mhm.
entrepreneur sitting in India and building something, you
Mhm.
do need that advantage, and you want to avoid the handicap where your primary customers are like not outside India. You want your
Yeah,
customer base to be local, because that's where you're going to get feedback. And once you're a
right,
little
right.
bit bigger, you can kind of get feedback and reach customers outside. But at the early stage, it's going to be very prohibitive for you to like go build something in India for customers that are largely outside India.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, sir.
Animesh, go ahead.
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि सर जैसे जैसे सर हम एआई में भी देख रहे हैं तो सर एनर्जी का क्या फ्यूचर है?
Energy, I mean, there are all these big things on the horizon, right? So energy is huge.
जी
uh, so is frankly quantum computing, right? So I think quantum computing, I think I would think within the next 10 years, maybe even sooner, we're probably going to see like massive strides and breakthroughs. And yeah, energy to hey problem. It's probably the biggest problem we have on the planet. So I'm
सर
not
अगर
sure what your question is.
मतलब सर हम एनर्जी प्रोड्यूसर की बात कर रहे हैं कि अगर क्या इन नेक्स्ट 5 to 10 years इंडिया एक बड़ा एनर्जी प्रोड्यूसर हो सकता है क्योंकि सर एनर्जी हमें टेक्नोलॉजी में भी चाहिए, जीपीयूज की ट्रेनिंग में भी चाहिए, डेटा सेंटर में भी चाहिए, एंड सर जो भी टेक्नोलॉजीज है उसमें भी.
Yeah, so I think if you're talking in the context of startups, right, okay, so a lot of the stuff that the Modi government is doing under Make in India, these are
जी
essentially, I would call them small businesses, not startups, even though the tagline is startups, because a lot of those
जी जी
funds are going to. So what Modi is doing is he's encouraging small businesses to come up and set up small factories. So you can produce, maybe parts for aircraft or like parts for like drones or entire drones or
जी
whatever, right? So,
जी जी
but I think so it's a lot of infrastructure and manufacturing. And when it comes to energy, that is very capital intensive, yeah. So only big companies can do that. Now, unless you're talking about innovating, as a startup on a part of that consumption chain, right? So you might come up
जी
with like, hey, I'm going to come up with the most productive and efficient solar panels. Maybe you crack the technology for that, or maybe you
जी जी
crack on the storage side, on the battery side, you come up with fundamentally new batteries. Uh, so
जी.
unless you move the needle on one of those areas, I don't think a startup can really make a difference on the energy side. You
सर
Rajat,
इंडिया
so
में सर
is
का
quantum
जी
computing, isn't it? Quantum computing भी big players game है.
well, yeah, absolutely. Well, uh, correct. You're right. But as we've seen with the whole AI thing, on the chip side, at least when it comes to like fundamental chip design, startups do get funded, right? So in theory, that could happen. I think the other is, like, if you think of it as a stack, the next layer above the chips, like Nvidia's moat is really the framework that they have above the hardware, right? So that keeps
Yeah.
the developers kind of captive. So there's an opportunity for some startup to kind of innovate at that layer as well. But you're right.
Mhm.
Largely, anytime there's hardware, it's capital intensive.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right, are we done?
Looks like everybody is done. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating. Like this was a most amazing and interactive session. I'm really thankful that all of you wanted to continue with after 1 hour. I have a limitation that I cannot set up meetings that are more than 1 hour long. Uh, Next time, let's hope that we can still finish it in 1 hour. Otherwise, we'll have to have some kind of pre-arrangement so that in case it goes over 1 hour, we'll have something ready in the session, so that people won't have to, scramble for it. Romil, you there?
Yes, sir, I'm there.
कुछ करेंगे यार नेक्स्ट टाइम इसका पहले से कुछ करके रखेंगे 10
Good
मिनट्स
करके रखेंगे. Yes, yes. This time, actually, we got the session was so great that we got completely carried away with it. So,
I know
but next
Thank
time,
you, Rajat. Thank you.
thank you
No,
so much, sir,
thank you all.
yeah,
Thanks,
for this
Bobby.
great
थैंक
session.
यू
Yeah.
रजत
All right.
But next time,
Have,
वो ध्यान रखेंगे, sir. Yes, for sure.
ऑल राइट विल सी यू
Sir,
नेक्स्ट वीक
Thank
sir,
you.
if
have
we
a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
बाय
Bye bye.
yes,
Yeah, bye.
yeah, Meng sir.
हाँ
Yeah, if we can use this meeting within some paid Gmail ID, like some company email ID, then we can extend our 1 hour limit in that email ID.
दोबारा बताओ हिंदी में बताओ समझ
वो
नहीं आया मेरे
कंपनी
को
आईडी से बोल रहा है, सर कह रहा है कि कंपनी
कंपनी
आईडी
आईडी से
से
करने पे सर वो 1 hour से ऊपर एक्सटेंड हो जाएगा आराम से.
कंपनी आईडी है किसी के पास
नहीं ना, वो वही चैलेंज है एक्चुअली. और आई डू नॉट नो इफ समबडी गेट्स टू नो अबाउट इट कि हम लोग ऐसा कर रहे हैं तो और प्रॉब्लम होगा. अभी
Yeah,
देखते विल फिगर दैट आउट, बट नेक्स्ट टाइम से ना थोड़ा पहले ही पोस्ट कर देंगे नया लिंक. इफ इन केस इट गोस, वी थिंक इट्स गोइंग बियॉन्ड 60 मिनट्स देन.
राइट बस वही एक चैलेंज रह गया है
नहीं, हाँ, वो कर लेंगे सर. वो मैंने कहा ना, इस बार इवन आई गॉट कैरिड अवे विद द डिस्कशन सो मच कि मैंने ध्यान नहीं दिया कि 1 घंटे से ऊपर जाने वाला था.
लास्ट 1 मिनट में मेरे को ध्यान आया कि यार ये तो 1
मुझे
मिनट रह
खुद,
गया
हाँ, मैंने जब पिंग किया ना कि मेरे पहले आई वाज अबाउट टू आस्क द क्वेश्चन, तो मैं उसमें इतना सोचने लगा कि मेरा ध्यान चला गया उसमें. बट आई विल मेक श्योर नेक्स्ट टाइम फिर.
थैंक यू एवरीवन बाय
थैंक यू.
thank you.
Thank you.